I didn't know a heart could make a sound without shattering. Yet that Friday night, as the city lights shimmered over the East River, I felt mine crack in perfect silence. Mark dragged his suitcase across the hardwood at midnight. No kiss on my forehead, no hand on my belly, just a muttered, "Client meeting in Boston. I'll be back Sunday night. Don't wait up." Then the door slammed. The echo wasn't loud, but it struck my chest like thunder. I stood barefoot in the middle of our Brooklyn Heights apartment, wearing Mark's old gray t-shirt stretched over my 24-week belly. Outside, the Manhattan skyline seemed like a dream belonging to someone else. The baby nudged softly, as if sensing the tension. I rested my palm on my stomach and whispered, "It's okay, sweetheart. Mom's right here." Mark used to carry my bags to the doctor. He used to speak to my belly every night. But lately, with his late nights, I'd been eating alone, falling asleep alone, waking alone. The spark was gone, and nobody explained why. At 3:12 a.m., I sat at the dining table scrolling through my phone, trying to convince myself I was overreacting. Maybe he really was in Boston. Maybe I was just emotional. Maybe hormones were turning me dramatic. Then my phone lit up. A message from Chase Bank. Transaction approved. $487.90. Midtown Manhattan. My breath caught. Midtown? He said he was on a morning flight to Boston. With trembling fingers, I opened the banking app. 2 more charges. One from a rooftop bar in Midtown, another from a florist on 5th Avenue. Roses. Mark hadn't bought flowers for me in years. The hallway creaked. Our elderly neighbor, Mrs. Hart, shuffled past with her dog. She'd heard the suitcase hours earlier. She tapped gently on my door. "Sweetheart, you okay?" Saw him leaving awfully late. Looked tense. I forced a smile. "Business trip." She frowned. "At midnight, without kissing your forehead like he always does." That sentence cut deep. I shut the door, leaned against it, and breathed through the tightness. I wanted to scream, but only a whisper escaped. He's lying. Saturday morning, the city hummed with life. Kids heading to soccer practice, brunch laughter drifting from the cafe downstairs. Inside, the apartment felt frozen. His side of the bed untouched. Closet door half closed, revealing a missing suit. At noon, I made oatmeal but barely swallowed 2 bites. My phone remained in hand, waiting for a message that never came. The baby pressed against my ribs, as if asking for the comfort I no longer had. By Saturday night, fear had dulled into numbness. I opened Find My on my phone. Mark always kept his location on, tracking my late Uber rides. The map loaded. A blinking blue to not Boston. Not even close. Midtown Manhattan, barely 10 miles away, still in the same spot for hours. A luxury hotel near Central Park. Not a conference center. Not an office. A hotel. My heart didn't scream. It dissolved silently. I grabbed a cardigan, draped it over my shoulders, and walked to the living room window. The skyline blinked back, tall and indifferent. He lied. He left me pregnant and alone for a weekend getaway in the same city. But the cruelest part wasn't the lie. It was realizing I wasn't surprised. Deep down, I already knew. That was the moment I decided he wouldn't find the woman he abandoned when he returned. He'd find the consequences. Mark didn't come home until Sunday night, after 10 p.m., when the hallway was quiet and neighbors asleep. I heard the key turn in the lock, slow and clumsy, as if practicing a lie behind the door. I stayed on the couch, blanket over my legs, lights dim, pretending I hadn't been staring at the ceiling for 48 hours. He stepped in holding a glossy paper bag from a luxury 5th Avenue baby boutique. A small square box with a silver ribbon peeked out. For a moment, I thought my heart might betray me. A foolish part of me wanted to believe he felt guilty and had returned to make things right. Then the smell hit me. Not my perfume. Not his cologne. Something sugary, floral, expensive, and unmistakably not mine. He set the gift bag on the coffee table. "Baby clothes," he said, voice casual, too casual. They were on sale. Mark hated shopping. He didn't know the first thing about baby boutiques. Yet here he was, back from a weekend he claimed was too busy for calls. carrying a bag from one of Manhattan's priciest stores. I kept my tone even. "How was Boston?" He blinked and I caught it. His eyes shifted a fraction to the left before he answered. "Productive. Tiring." He tossed his leather wallet onto the table. A hotel key card slipped out. Not a Boston hotel. Midtown. The same one from the banking app. My breath caught. This was no longer suspicion. It was confirmation. I picked up the baby bag. The ribbon gleamed like a cruel joke. Leaning closer, the perfume on the handle hit me, sweet, expensive, utterly foreign. My hand shook, but my voice stayed steady. "I thought you'd be home for dinner." He shrugged, loosening his tie. Flight was delayed. Line number 3 in under 5 minutes. He went to shower. While the water ran, I reached for his wallet. Not out of anger, not revenge, but survival. Inside was a folded receipt, a reservation for dinner at a rooftop restaurant overlooking Central Park for 2. He had spent the weekend spoiling another woman while I sat alone, feeling our baby move for both of us. The shower stopped. I tucked the receipt back exactly where it belonged and returned to the couch, hands folded, face calm. He emerged in a white t-shirt and joggers, hair damp, smelling of hotel shampoo, not ours. "You're quiet," he said, grabbing a bottle of water from the fridge. "I'm tired," I replied. He kissed the top of my head. It felt foreign, forced, a gesture meant to erase guilt, not show love. Later that night, as he snored beside me in deep, careless sleep, I unlocked my iPhone and took photos. The Fifth Avenue gift bag, the key card, the receipt from his wallet, the perfume-stained handle. Each image went into a hidden album. At 2:37 a.m., I opened my email and wrote to Olivia Chin. Subject: "Ready when you are. Attachments for files." The baby kicked again, harder this time. I placed my hand on my belly and whispered, "I won't let anyone hurt you. Not even him." I stared at the ceiling until dawn, watching the first blue light creep across the walls of our Brooklyn Heights apartment. Mark slept, oblivious to the storm he had built with his own hands. And in that quiet, a terrifying truth settled inside me. He wasn't coming back, not really. I had to leave before his lies finished breaking what was left of me. The next time he walked through that door, he wouldn't find a loving wife waiting. He would find an empty home. I didn't sleep. At 7:15 a.m. Monday, Mark rushed out with a travel mug and the same bland excuse. Big week ahead. He didn't notice the baby bag on the table. He didn't notice the emptiness in my voice. He didn't notice anything except himself. The door clicked shut, leaving silence. I walked to the bedroom closet and pulled out a folder I'd been quietly building for the past 2 weeks. Bank logs, screenshots of late-night charges, hotel receipts, photos of him and Sloane reflected in mirrors. Proof of where he had spent his nights while I carried our child alone. By 10 a.m., I sat across from Olivia Chun in her glass-walled Midtown office. The city pulsed below, yellow taxis, men in suits holding lattes, women with sleek ponytails and lives that looked effortlessly put together. I tried not to feel small. Olivia tapped her pen against a stack of papers. "Julia, what you're feeling is valid. But emotion won't win in court. Evidence will, and you brought plenty." I nodded, hands trembling just enough for her to notice. She slid a thick packet toward me. "Remember the lease-to-own contract Mark signed last year? He insisted both names be on it for the tax benefits." She flipped to a highlighted clause. "This is your way out. If one partner violates marital obligations tied to financial stability, the other can legally transfer their interest to the management company or an approved buyer. No signature from him required." I blinked. "So, I can leave without asking him?" "You can," she said firmly. "And because you're pregnant, the court will prioritize your well-being and the baby's. Your documentation clearly shows he's been spending family funds on someone else." That gave us even more leverage. A warmth spread through my chest. Not happiness, but relief that the nightmare had rules. Olivia opened her MacBook and began typing a formal notice. "When Mark leaves the apartment again, and he will, we'll push the paperwork. The management company has already confirmed they'll take over your share. He'll walk away clean." But won't he come after me? I asked. Olivia leaned back. Men like him always try. But unless he wants the court to see every charge, every hotel stay, every bouquet that wasn't for you, he'll settle. Especially with a baby on the way. Judges don't like men who put mistresses above pregnant wives. Her words landed like armor around my heart. She printed a transfer form and slid it across the desk. This needs your signature. Once it's processed, Mark can scream, threaten, cry, it won't matter. The law is on your side. For the first time in weeks, I breathed fully. I signed. My handwriting looked steady, almost elegant, as if a stronger version of me had taken over. Olivia placed the form in a cream envelope and sealed it. When do we move? I asked. As soon as he's gone for another night, she replied. You'll pack essentials only, documents, prenatal vitamins, clothes. I'll handle the legal transfer. You focus on staying safe. Her office suddenly felt warmer, not luxurious, just safe, like a lifeboat. Before I left, Olivia handed me one last paper. This is the number of a realtor who can help you find a short-term studio. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere he knows nothing about. I slipped the envelope into my purse and placed a protective hand on my belly. The baby shifted gently, as if agreeing. Outside, the noise of Midtown no longer felt overwhelming. It sounded like freedom. One thought froze me. When Mark came home tonight, he'd see the same woman in the same apartment, but she was no longer his to lie to. 3 nights passed without fights, questions, or warmth. We were strangers sharing walls. Thursday evening, Mark returned in his best charcoal suit, the one reserved for client meetings or anniversaries. He sprayed cologne in the hallway mirror, checked his hair twice. He didn't look tired, he looked excited. Dinner with corporate, he said, grabbing his keys. Probably late. Don't wait up. I only nodded. He hesitated, maybe expecting jealousy, anger, or a desperate plea to make him stay. When none came, he left quickly, like guilt might cling if he lingered. The door clicked shut. 5 minutes later, I donned my coat. Outside, the early spring air was crisp. I flagged a yellow taxi and sat in the back seat, palms pressed against my belly. The cab followed his usual route toward Midtown. Traffic lights painted the windshield red and gold. In the hotel district, the streets glowed with perfume, polished shoes, and people unburdened by secrets like mine. The taxi stopped across from a well-known hotel near Central Park, the same one from Mark's receipts. Wait here, I told the driver. Through the revolving doors, I saw him in the lobby, checking his watch. A woman approached from the elevator bank, hair curled, in a red silk dress and heels too high for a casual night. Sloane. I'd only glimpsed her once before, reflected in a restaurant window months ago, laughing at a joke I wasn't there to hear. My heart didn't shatter, it hardened. Mark smiled at her, not the tired smile he gave me, but the one he'd worn when we first started dating. He took her coat, placed a hand on her lower back, leaned close to her ear. They headed to the elevators. I lifted my phone and snapped a photo of the lobby's mirrored column as they passed. The reflection captured them both, his hand on her waist, her head on his shoulder. No screaming, no confrontation, just truth recorded silently. My chest tightened. I told myself to breathe. The baby kicked. It felt like a reminder. We're leaving soon. I whispered. I know, sweetheart. I'm doing this for us. When they disappeared into the elevator, I crossed the street to a cafe, sat in a corner by the window, and ordered a warm decaf latte. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from a strange, steady calm. I emailed the photos to Olivia with a subject line, "He's not even hiding anymore." She replied within minutes, "Asterisk, this is enough. Tomorrow will be the day." Asterisk. I exhaled shakily, staring at the Manhattan skyline, glowing over the treetops. The city was loud, alive, indifferent. Somewhere high above, Mark and Sloane were probably toasting champagne, joking about how easy it was to lie. But while they celebrated, I planned my freedom. Around 11 p.m., I watched them leave the hotel. Mark hailed a black SUV for her, opened the door, kissed her cheek. Then he checked his phone, likely rehearsing another excuse for me. I didn't go home immediately. I stayed in the cafe until closing, letting the city calm around me. The barista swept floors, dimmed the lights, stacked chairs. I finished the last sip of latte, grabbed my coat, and stepped into the cold. The night didn't feel harsh anymore. It felt like a promise. When I returned to the apartment, Mark was already asleep, snoring softly, smelling of perfume that wasn't mine. I stood beside the bed and stared at him, not with love, not with sorrow, but with the cold clarity that this was the last night he would sleep beside me as my husband. Tomorrow, everything would change, and he wouldn't see it coming. Mark left early Friday morning, humming in the shower, whistling while buttoning his shirt. He carried the same confidence he brought home from the hotel, like cheating had made him lighter, happier, freer. "Don't forget your prenatal vitamins," he said casually, the kind of husband who pretends to care. He kissed my cheek, grabbed his laptop bag, and walked out with a smile that didn't belong to a man with a family to protect. The moment the elevator door swallowed him, I moved. My small suitcase was ready: documents, clothes, ultrasound photos, toiletries. No jewelry, no valuables, nothing he could claim as stolen. I didn't touch his things. I didn't break or damage anything. Everything was clean, lawful, silent. I called the building manager. 10 minutes later, he met me in the lobby, gray hair, pressed suit, clipboard under his arm. "Mrs. Parker," he greeted politely. "Your attorney notified me. I have the transfer forms." We sat in the small office behind the front desk, warm with morning sunlight. He slid the paperwork across the table. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't messy. Just signatures and dates. "The company assumes you're half of the lease-to-own agreement," he explained. "Per Clause 14b, you're legally released from responsibility. No penalties, no breach. Mr. Parker will be notified once it's processed." I signed in 3 places. My handwriting barely shook. When it was done, he handed me a stamped copy. "You're officially clear, Mrs. Parker. You can walk away today." Something inside my chest loosened. Not joy, just oxygen. A maintenance worker, tall with gentle eyes, escorted me upstairs to drop off my final item. On the kitchen counter, I placed our spare keys beside a folded note. Short, respectful, final. Asterisk, I know about her. I know what you've done. The apartment is no longer mine. I'm choosing peace for the baby and for myself. Do not contact me unless through my attorney. Asterisk. I didn't sign my name. He didn't deserve it. Before leaving, I walked through each room once, not as a wife, but as someone closing a chapter. The dining table where I ate alone, the couch where I waited for messages that never came, the bed where he slept smelling like someone else. The silence felt different now, not empty, but free. At 10:05 a.m., I rolled my suitcase to the elevator. The maintenance worker pressed the button for me. When the doors closed, I inhaled deeply, hand resting on my belly. "You'd be proud of me," I whispered to the baby. "We did it the right way." Outside, the spring air smelled like new beginnings. I climbed into a yellow taxi and gave the driver an address in Soho, a small apartment Olivia and the realtor had found. Small but safe, temporary but mine. As the taxi crossed the bridge, Manhattan rose ahead like a steel promise. Mark was somewhere in a meeting, sipping overpriced coffee, believing everything was secure. He wouldn't know for hours that I was gone. He wouldn't know the apartment no longer belonged to both of us. He wouldn't know that every lie he told had been documented, time-stamped, and legally recorded. When we reached Soho, the realtor handed me a key with a gentle smile. "The building is quiet, good light. You'll sleep better here." Inside the studio, sunlight spilled across wooden floors, a small kitchenette, a neatly made bed, a single vase with fresh lilies. It didn't look like escape. It looked like a beginning. I unpacked slowly. One drawer for baby clothes, a shelf for vitamins and ultrasound photos. I brewed a cup of tea, sat on the edge of the bed, and listened to the silence. For the first time in months, it didn't hurt. It healed. I wasn't running. I wasn't hiding. I had moved on legally, calmly, completely. And when Mark finally came home tonight, There would be no fight waiting for him. Just an empty apartment and a life he could no longer control. Mark didn't find out until late Friday night. I was in my Soho studio, feet up on a soft white blanket, sipping warm tea, feeling the baby move beneath my palm. Meanwhile, he was unlocking the door of our old apartment, expecting dinner leftovers, expecting the sound of me brushing my teeth, expecting his life to remain exactly where he left it. Instead, he found nothing. Mrs. Hart later told me what happened. She lived across the hall and heard everything, doors slamming, footsteps pacing, Mark's voice breaking the quiet. "Julia, Julia, where the hell are you?" He searched every room, switched on every light, through open closets.
My clothes were gone. My shoes were gone.
The baby books by the nightstand were gone. But the apartment wasn't damaged. Not a single thing out of place, just empty of the woman he never thought would leave. Then he found the note on the kitchen counter. Mrs. Hart said there was silence for a long moment, then glass shattering, a yell caught in his throat, a desperate, angry sound, like a man realizing control had slipped from his hands. He tried calling me once, twice, 20 times. My phone buzzed on the dresser in the studio. The same Manhattan skyline visible through my window, but from a different angle, a different life. I ignored every call. The next hour, he moved to texts. "Asterisk, where are you? This isn't funny. Julia, call me back. We need to talk. You can't just leave." Asterisk, not once did he say, "I'm sorry." Not once did he ask if I was safe. Not once did he ask about the baby. Only demands. I blocked his number and sent Olivia a short message. "He knows. Good. Now everything goes through me," she replied. That night, the studio felt small but peaceful. I unpacked a little more, soft cotton baby blankets, tiny socks, prenatal vitamins lying neatly on the counter. I opened a Kindle and read a chapter from Women Who Run with the Wolves. The words tasted like courage. When exhaustion finally pulled me into sleep, it was the first night in months I didn't cry. The next morning, sunlight painted gold across the wooden floors. I walked to the window, rested my chin on my hand, and watched Soho wake up. Delivery trucks, coffee carts, a woman walking her golden retriever. It felt like breathing clean air for the first time. Around noon, there was a gentle knock. Mrs. Hart stood there with a brown paper bag of homemade muffins and a warm smile. "I thought you might need breakfast," she said. "And I wanted you to know I heard him last night." My eyes stung. "Thank you. For everything." She squeezed my hand. "You left with dignity. That matters." We sat at the small kitchen table while sunlight warmed the lilies in the vase. She promised to testify if needed, to confirm the late-night departures, the nights he never came home, the suitcase rolling down the hallway before dawn. After she left, I took out a portable hard drive and backed up every photo, receipt, and text. Olivia had warned me. Cheaters often cast themselves as victims when they lose control. I wasn't going to be blindsided. By evening, my phone dinged. An email from Mark Parker. Subject: "What did you do?" I deleted it. A second arrived minutes later. Angrier, less composed. Asterisk, "You can't just disappear. That apartment is ours. Call me now." Asterisk, still no concern for my safety. Still no thought for the baby. I shut the laptop and breathed slowly, feeling the baby shift. "We're okay," I whispered. "He can't reach us here." That night, I lit a small lamp beside the bed and lay on fresh linen that didn't smell like lies. The studio was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the gentle pulse of life inside me. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring: court documents, anger, accusations, but for the first time, the future didn't scare me. I wasn't living in his shadow anymore. I was living in my own light. By Monday morning, Mark's frustration had turned into fury. He showed up at the old apartment building, demanding answers from the manager. When he learned the transfer was legal, processed, signed, and stamped, Mark lost whatever composure remained. He stormed out, the manager later told Olivia, slamming the door hard enough to shake the frame. That afternoon, an email arrived from his attorney. Asterisk Mr. Rock Parker asserts that you illegally sold the shared home without his consent. He demands immediate reversal and financial reparations. Asterisk I sat on the small sofa in my Soho studio, rubbing my belly, feeling the baby roll beneath my ribs. I didn't panic. I didn't cry. I forwarded the email to Olivia and returned to sipping warm water with lemon. 2 hours later, Olivia called. Julia, listen carefully, she said, voice calm but razor-sharp. He's trying to bully you, but we have every piece of evidence we need. I've already filed a response with the court. They'll set a preliminary hearing within days. You won't have to speak. I'll handle everything. The hearing was scheduled for Thursday morning. When the day came, I wore a simple navy dress and a light beige coat. No makeup except lip balm. I wasn't there to impress anyone. I was there to be seen, steady, calm, unbroken. The Manhattan family courthouse was bright and echoing with footsteps. Mark stood near the entrance, suit crisp, jaw tight, eyes darting. When he saw me, something flickered, shock, anger, maybe fear, but he didn't speak. His lawyer touched his arm, guiding him forward like a restless dog straining at a leash. Inside the courtroom, Olivia opened her MacBook and arranged her papers with the confidence of someone who had buried men like Mark 100 times before. Mark's attorney began loudly. Mrs. Parker abandoned the marital home and sold it without my client's authorization, causing significant financial damage. Olivia didn't flinch. She stood, clicked her trackpad, and the monitor beside the judge lit up with documents. Your Honor, she began, Mrs. Parker did not sell the home. She legally transferred her share of the lease-to-own agreement to the management company under Clause 14B, a clause Mr. Parker signed. The contract appeared on screen, highlighted, dated, clear. Mark shifted uncomfortably. Additionally, Olivia continued, we have documented evidence of Mr. Parker violating the financial and marital obligations that clause protects, bank charges for hotels, luxury restaurants, transfers, tours to a woman who is not his wife, all during the period Mrs. Parker was pregnant and medically vulnerable. She tapped again. Receipts appeared. Hotel charge, rooftop dinner, Fifth Avenue purchase, then the image of Mark and Sloane reflected in the mirrored hotel lobby, his hand around her waist. The judge leaned forward slightly. Mark's attorney tried to object, voice cracking. That photo doesn't prove. Olivia cut in smoothly. It is time-stamped, matching the exact window Mr. Parker claimed to be on a business trip in Boston. We also have bank records confirming he was in New York City the entire weekend. She lifted another page. We have a sworn statement from Mrs. Hart, the neighbor, confirming Mr. Parker routinely left the home late at night, often not returning until morning. The courtroom fell silent except for the rustle of paper. Mark's lawyer stammered. Asterisk, my client was under stress. These purchases, these charges were misunderstandings. Asterisk. Olivia's voice turned colder than steel. Your Honor, Mrs. Parker did everything legally, quietly, and without malice. Mr. Parker's accusations are not only false, but an attempt to intimidate a pregnant woman after betraying her trust. The judge exhaled heavily, eyes on Mark. Mr. Parker, he said, this court will not tolerate manipulation or retaliation. The transfer stands. Mrs. Parker acted within her legal rights. You will communicate with her only through counsel. Mark's face flushed red, fists clenched, but he said nothing. When it was over, Olivia placed a gentle hand on my back as we walked out. You were brilliant, she told me. Silent, calm, untouchable. Outside, the morning sun reflected off the glass skyscrapers. I pulled my coat tighter around my belly and breathed in the cold air. Mark had thrown his first punch, and it landed on a wall of evidence he never saw coming. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Men like him rarely surrender. 2 days after the preliminary hearing, Mark stopped pretending to be calm. First came the emails, long, ranting paragraphs about how I was ruining his life and overreacting. I didn't answer. Olivia told me not to. His words bounced off the brick walls of my Soho studio like echoes from a life I no longer belonged to. Then came a short one. If you want to play dirty, I can play dirtier. I didn't reply. I forwarded the message to Olivia with nothing but a subject line that carried its own threat. Within the hour, she emailed the court. That same afternoon, Olivia called. There's something important.
Check your inbox, she said.
When I opened the file, my heartbeat quickened, not with fear, but with clarity. Screenshots, dozens of them. Mark had forgotten to log out of his shared cloud service when he replaced his phone last month. Every reservation, every receipt, every photo taken on his device in the last 6 weeks was stored there. Pictures of rooftop dinners overlooking the Manhattan skyline, champagne glasses clinking, Sloane's hand resting on his. A box from a high-end jewelry store, one I had never received. And worse, proof he had transferred money out of the baby budget account. Small amounts over multiple days, covering restaurant tabs, hotel stays, a spa voucher. Olivia organized everything in a spreadsheet with dates, times, and matching receipts. When his lawyer argued there was no proof these charges were tied to infidelity, Olivia's voice cut through. Now we had his own camera roll documenting it. My stomach tightened, not from heartbreak, but from justice. Later that evening, I sat on the edge of my bed with the studio lights soft and warm. I stared at a photo of Mark and Sloane sitting on wicker chairs at a rooftop bar, city lights glittering behind them. He looked happy, free, proud, like a man whose wife didn't exist. For a moment, I wondered how he could smile like that while I spent lonely nights feeling our baby kick, terrified of the future. The thought passed quickly. I wasn't the one who needed to explain myself to a judge. The next morning, we returned to court for a follow-up hearing. Mark walked in with his head high, but bloodshot eyes and a jaw so tight it looked painful. His attorney stood beside him, shoulders stiff, voice strained. Your Honor, my client believes the accusations have been exaggerated. He would like the court to consider. Olivia interrupted politely. Before we proceed, we have new evidence. The judge nodded. She connected her laptop to the courtroom screen. Image after image appeared. Rooftop dinners, hotel receipts, transfers from the baby savings account, flirty text messages captured in screenshots. Sloane had even posted a photo on her public social media, cocktail in hand, captioned, asterisk, weekend escape with someone special. Asterisk, the timestamp matched the hotel stay exactly. Mark's face drained of color. His lawyer stammered, "These are private matters. These transactions have nothing to do with the marital home." The judge cut him off sharply. Financial betrayal during a pregnancy is very relevant. Olivia stepped closer. Mrs. Parker didn't yell. She didn't damage property. She didn't fight. She simply protected herself and her child. Mr. Parker used joint funds meant for childcare and necessities to entertain another woman. That is financial misconduct. Silence stretched thick enough to hear my heartbeat. Then the judge spoke. Given the evidence, I am granting Mrs. Parker temporary financial protection. Mr. Parker is forbidden from accessing shared funds until further review. Additionally, all communication must continue through counsel. Any attempt to contact Mrs. Parker directly will result in sanctions. Mark looked at me and really looked. Fury, disbelief, humiliation tangled in his eyes. I didn't look away. Outside the courthouse, Olivia tucked her files into her bag. You held your ground, she said. That matters. Walking down the courthouse steps, I felt the baby flutter. The April wind was cold, but not unkind. For the first time, I realized Mark wasn't just losing a fight, he was losing control of the story he had built about himself. Somewhere deep inside, I felt the first flicker of peace. This wasn't the end, but for the first time, the end didn't scare me. The storm didn't hit all at once. It arrived in pieces. Slow, humiliating, unstoppable. A week after the temporary order, Olivia called while I sat at the window of my Soho studio, feet propped on a pillow, sipping warm tea. Julia, she said gently, the bank completed its audit on the shared savings account. I braced myself. Over $9,200 used in the last 3 months, she continued. Hotels, jewelry, private dining, some charges during doctor appointments he never showed up for. The court has everything. For a moment, I closed my eyes. Not because the number hurt, but because I was surprised at how little I felt. My heart had already moved on. 2 days later, the consequences reached Mark's workplace. He worked at a tech sales firm in Midtown, polished floors, glass walls, young men in expensive suits climbing corporate ladders. According to Olivia's source, someone in the finance department had flagged Mark's company credit card for irregular personal spending, jewelry, hotel stays, expensive restaurants, all while he claimed to be entertaining clients. He was summoned to a disciplinary meeting. He walked out suspended, pending an internal investigation. The man who once bragged about being unshakable was unraveling in public. Thursday morning brought the final hearing. The family courtroom was quiet, sunlight streaming through tall windows. I wore a soft cream sweater stretched over my belly, holding a folder of medical papers, prenatal checkups, ultrasound reports, proof I had navigated every appointment alone. Across from me, Mark looked diminished. His tie hung loose, his hair uncombed, eyes darting to the judge, the lawyers, the exits, anywhere but me. His attorney cleared his throat. "Your Honor, my client would like to propose a settlement. He believes." Olivia rose, calm and unwavering. "Before any proposals are considered, the court should review the financial audit." She handed a binder to the clerk, who passed it to the judge. Inside were statements and screenshots. The money Mark had hidden, nights spent elsewhere, transfers from the baby fund, credit card charges tied to weekends with Sloan. The judge flipped through silently, jaw tightening. Then Olivia delivered the final blow, a sworn affidavit from the bank auditor and a notice from Mark's employer confirming the workplace investigation for misuse of company funds. Even his lawyer stepped back slightly. "Mr. Parker," the judge said, voice echoing, "you violated marital financial responsibilities, misappropriated funds intended for child care, and attempted to intimidate your pregnant wife after she lawfully removed herself from a toxic environment." Mark swallowed hard. "I can explain." "No," the judge interrupted. "You will listen." He glanced at me, eyes softening. "Mrs. Parker, you acted within the law. You documented everything. You sought counsel rather than confrontation. You protected your child." Warmth spread behind my ribs. I lowered my gaze, holding back tears, not of sorrow, but of relief. The judge turned back to Mark. "Here is the ruling. The financial transfer remains valid. Mrs. Parker is awarded full control of the remaining joint funds. Mr. Parker is responsible for all court costs, and due to your financial misconduct, the court will consider restrictions on any future joint accounts." Mark shook his head, voice cracking. "You can't do this. She destroyed my life." "No, Mr. Parker," the judge replied, the gavel striking once, sharp and final. Outside the courthouse, sunlight spilled across the stone steps. I stood still, breathing in the cold air. Olivia handed me a copy of the ruling. "You're free," she said softly, "legally and financially." I pressed a hand to my belly. The baby kicked gently, strong and alive. Behind us, the courthouse doors burst open. Mark stepped out, phone to his ear, pacing, shouting. The world continued around him, taxis, businessmen, tourists snapping photos, while his life unraveled in public view. For the first time, he had to stand alone. I turned away. He had spent months pretending I didn't exist. Today, I returned the favor. This chapter wasn't hope, it was justice. And justice finally belonged to me. 3 months later, summer sunlight poured through the windows of my Soho studio like warm silk. The city sounded different now, less like noise, more like possibility. At 3:40 a.m., the contractions began. Not terrifying, not dramatic, just steady, real, as if my body had been waiting for the world to catch up. Daniel drove me to the hospital in his old black Jeep, hand braced on the wheel, jaw tight every time I winced. "You're doing amazing," he whispered, even when I could barely breathe long enough to respond. 12 hours later, I heard the first cry, a tiny, furious sound, stronger than heartbreak, stronger than fear. The nurse placed my son on my chest, warm, small, perfect. His fingers curled around mine, and something inside me rewired forever. I cried, not from exhaustion or loneliness, but relief so deep it shook me. He was safe. He was mine. He would never grow up in a home where love was a weapon. The hospital room was quiet and bright, white sheets tucked around us like armor. Daniel stepped forward with a bouquet of soft pale pink peonies and placed it beside the bed. "He has your eyes," he said softly. I smiled, stroking my son's cheek. "He has my heart." When the nurse left, I opened my laptop. One final loose end. I sent a single email. Subject: Your son was born healthy. Please direct any future communication through Olivia. No photos, no names, no invitations. Mark had tried calling the week before, blocked, ignored, redirected through lawyers. The judge had upheld the financial ruling, and his workplace had officially terminated him for ethics violations. He was too busy managing the mess of his own life to pretend he cared about mine. I was done giving him power he never earned. 3 days later, the hospital discharged us. Daniel carried my overnight bag while I held my son close to my chest. The summer breeze smelled of rain and fresh pavement as I slid into the passenger seat. Back at the studio, everything felt new, not temporary, not borrowed. Home. Warm yellow light spilled across the hardwood floors. A crib waited beside my bed, simple white wood, soft blankets, a little stuffed bear tucked into one corner. I set my son down gently, and for the first time in months, I felt the room exhale with me. Life wasn't quiet because something was missing. It was quiet because everything dangerous was gone. Weeks passed. I healed. My son grew. Tiny smiles, tiny hands stretching toward the sunlight. At night, I rocked him by the window, watching the city lights blink like steady stars. One morning, an email arrived from Daniel's architecture firm. "We'd like you to lead the interior design for our new boutique renovation in Brooklyn Heights." Brooklyn Heights, the place where my world had ended, and the place where it would begin again. I visited the building a week later. Tall windows, exposed brick, a small courtyard where ivy curled around the iron railings. As I walked through the dusty rooms, I felt no pain, no ghosts, just opportunity. Daniel leaned against the doorway, hands in his pockets. "You ready to design something beautiful again?" I looked down at my son, sleeping peacefully in his carrier, then back at the sunlight spilling through the windows. "Yes," I said. "For the first time, I am." As summer deepened, the project took shape. Mood boards on my MacBook Air, color swatches spread across the table, sketches pinned to the walls. Every brush stroke felt like a promise. Every plan felt like a future. Some nights, I sat on the roof with a cup of tea, watching the skyline I once feared. It no longer looked threatening, it looked like freedom. And in every quiet moment, I knew something true. Leaving wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of my life. My son would grow up knowing what love truly looks like, not apologies, not excuses, not empty promises. Real love, safe love, the kind we build ourselves. Mark never saw that. He never met the boy who changed everything. He never touched the life he tried to destroy. That was his punishment and my victory. 1 year later, I woke to tiny footsteps padding across the wooden floor. My son, now walking, wobbled, laughing, and ran toward the open balcony where the morning sun spilled like honey across the room. He stopped beside the small planter of daisies we'd grown together, grabbed a fistful of petals, and turned proudly as if he'd discovered treasure. His laughter filled the apartment, bright, loud, fearless. I hadn't realized how healing laughter could be until it came from someone I created. Our home was different now. Bigger, filled with framed drawings, scattered toys, lavender candles on the kitchen counter, quiet jazz floating from a speaker. There was no anger in the walls, no tension in the air. Only peace. I brewed coffee, swaying slowly with my sleepy toddler on my hip, and gazed out the window toward the river. The skyline glittered, but it no longer intimidated me. It felt part of my story, proof that even in a city this loud, a heart could rebuild quietly. Sometimes people asked how I survived everything. The truth was simple. I didn't survive. I rebuilt, piece by piece, day by day, choice by choice. There were nights I cried, mornings I was scared. But every time I held my son, I remembered why I left, why I fought, why I refused to go back. He deserved a mother who wasn't broken. And I deserved a life where love didn't hurt. Daniel still visited, sometimes bringing blueprints for new projects, sometimes groceries, sometimes just patience and quiet company. I didn't rush anything. I didn't force anything. Healing has its own timing, and I had learned to trust mine. One evening, while tucking my son into bed, I whispered, "You will never grow up thinking love is supposed to hurt. You will know gentle love, honest love." He curled against my chest and drifted to sleep with a tiny sigh. Outside, city lights shimmered like 1,000 warm stars. I sat by the window, a blanket draped over my knees, listening to my baby breathe, soft, steady, safe. And in that quiet, I finally understood. Happiness doesn't always arrive with fanfare. Sometimes it comes as sunlight spilling across a calm morning, tiny footsteps padding over wooden floors, and the sound of a child who will never know the storm his mother endured to give him a life of peace. I hadn't just walked away from my old life. I was walking toward a better one.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.